Get your tickets now for the Dog Stars.
It's no surprise how fast civilization can disappear. Out there, it's kill or be killed.
Jacob Elordi.
There are people out there.
They need our help.
Josh Brolin.
Shoot first and inquire afterwards.
Margaret Qualley.
Okay, tough guy.
And Guy Pearce.
Arm up!
The Dog Stars, directed by Ridley Scott. In theaters August 28th. Get tickets now. Rated R. Under 17. Not admitted without parents.
The award-winning American Airlines AAdvantage program rewards more than travel. It takes your whole life to new heights. Earn miles when you fly, as well as with thousands of your favorite brands. And then redeem those miles for flights, upgrades, and experiences worldwide. AAdvantage members also enjoy earlier boarding and free high-speed Wi-Fi in flight. Join for free and start earning towards your next adventure at aa.com/Spotify.
The Box of Oddities.
11111.
Hold on.
You ready now?
Yep, cracked open a crispy Coke Zero.
We are coming to you somewhat live from northern Maine, my sister's lake house. They're so kind to let us come here every summer and stay for a few days or a week or two.
And even though we come here and then we're like, hey, can I do a bunch of laundry and record in your kitchen? They still invite us to come back.
We try to be good guests, and we always clean up after our dogs. And last summer, we really didn't know where to put all the poop bags, so we found one of those 5-gallon containers like the paint comes in. It has like kind of that Tupperware snap-down top.
And so we did a pretty good dent in that bucket with poop. And then we're getting ready to leave for the summer, and we're like, hey, what do you want us to do with that poop bucket? And we were told, I'll take care of it.
Apparently, it wasn't taken care of, and we came back, and I went around to the back where the pail was, and apparently there was a gas buildup.
The bucket exploded.
It was like dog poop bucket munitions.
We still haven't come up with a better solution.
No, we're just piling it up on the step.
We're so classy. We're classy like that.
I mean, talk about dropping a bomb.
P-Unabomber.
Uh-huh, yeah. That's where we're going. Anyway, got a couple stories for you as we sit here in this lovely, quiet cottage. Now, there's a good chance something happened to you before you were born that you still carry around with you, whether you realize it or not. You heard your mother's voice. It's likely, according to research, that during the final days or weeks of pregnancy, like the very end of the third trimester, you heard the rhythm of language that your family spoke. You heard music, traffic, doors closing, people laughing, all of it muffled and distorted by, of course, the fluids and the flesh.
The fluids and the flesh.
That sounds like a really bad soap opera.
Yep.
But some of it did get through, and your brain was paying attention. And that becomes especially strange when you consider that there are people who claim that they can actually remember that.
It actually surprises me that you don't claim that you can, because you've got a bonkers memory.
I can remember some pretty early stuff. I remember a lot of things from when I was not quite 2. And I've always amazed my parents when I would be able to describe the apartment we lived in exactly and things like that. And I do have a memory, I think it's a memory, of when I had measles when I was a kid. And they said I was 18 months old when I had the measles.
That's bonkers.
For generations, researchers have collected accounts from people who insist that their memories go back impossibly far. Some describe lying in a crib before they could speak. Others claim to remember being born.
Whoa!
And a smaller number say they have memories that begin even earlier, from within the womb. Now, I know you're claustrophobic, and probably the idea of that is not pleasant for you.
No, and my mom and I have a complicated relationship. We love to hang out, but like for a certain amount of time. There's definitely a time limit on our hang sessions before one of us is irritated with the other. And so the idea of being inside of her, it's a little overwhelming.
Some people describe darkness and pressure and floating or hearing voices somewhere outside of themselves, almost like a supernatural experience, how we would describe maybe an afterlife experience or something. The easiest thing would be, of course, to dismiss it all as just imagination.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is. I mean, let's get real. The problem is that science keeps moving the starting line. For most of the 20th century, babies were thought to enter the world with relatively little awareness of what had happened before birth.
Sure. Yeah. Otherwise, what a nightmare.
Yeah. That moment when your consciousness turns on and you're still in the womb and you're like, what the hell's going on here? Then researchers started asking newborn babies what they remembered. Now, obviously, you can't interview a newborn baby, but you can give them a nipple. In 1980, psychologists Anthony DeCasper and William Pfeiffer designed an experiment in which newborns sucked on a special nipple connected to a recording system. By changing the way they sucked, the babies could essentially control which voice they heard and, in theory, which voice they preferred. And given the choice, the newborns preferred their mother's voice every time.
Okay, I kind of follow what you're saying, sure.
Now, that by itself is fascinating because these babies had barely arrived. They hadn't spent 6 months staring at their mom or listening to her voice. They already knew it. Then DeCasper and psychologist Melanie Spence went a little bit further. During the final weeks of pregnancy, mothers repeatedly read the same passage aloud. After the babies were born, the researchers tested whether the newborns preferred that familiar passage over something that they had never heard. And they did.
Aha.
What does this mean? Before these babies ever saw a face or felt cold air or discovered the horror of the Brannick device, something from outside of the world had made its way in, outside of their world anyway, and they kept it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all know that the fetus inside the womb takes in information.
Yes, and especially toward the very end of the third trimester. A human being can apparently begin learning a soundtrack to life before its life has officially begun. And that doesn't mean somebody can grow up and consciously remember hanging around in mom's womb, listening to mom talk about these ridiculously high gas prices. Recognizing something is very different from having an autobiographical memory of experiencing it.
Right.
But that distinction does get a bit complicated. Psychologist David Chamberlain became fascinated by people who claim to remember their own births. That's got to be the most traumatic thing next to maybe dying.
I would think so.
That a person goes through. Beginning in the 1970s, he investigated supposed birth memories and eventually wrote, Babies Remember Birth. There's a title that says what it is. Some subjects gave extraordinarily detailed accounts. There was a major problem, though. Much of Chamberlain's work involved hypnosis. And we know how hypnosis can make people extremely confident about memories that aren't necessarily accurate. The brain is capable of filling gaps, combining information, creating a scene that feels absolutely authentic.
Well, I would think for any of this to be believed at all, there would have to be some sort of corroborating information. Like, oh, I heard the doctor say, screedly-dap-bow, and then the mom was like, yes, your doctor was scatting while I was giving birth.
Now, that may explain a lot of impossible early memories, the hypnosis thing. And I've had an experience with hypnosis a couple of times.
More than you know.
What?
Nothing. Continue.
I was doing a morning radio show, and I had a co-host, and she was very concerned about not appearing to look stupid. I guess like all of us, she was just very guarded. And we had a hypnotist on. They took her in the other room, and she came back, and he had hypnotized her so that every time we mentioned the time, or she mentioned the time, she would crow like a rooster. And she did. And when we played the tape back for her, she couldn't believe it. She was horrified.
Because she didn't want to look dumb.
Right.
Well, congratulations, roosters aren't dumb, so you're fine.
Now, again, this explains a lot of the impossible early memories, or certainly some of them, but not everything. In 2018, researchers asked more than 6,600 people about the earliest event they could remember. And the average age for remembering was about 3 years old, which is roughly what memory researchers had expected.
Okay. We really are on the opposite ends of this spectrum.
You have a hard time remembering anything before 10.
Even 10 is generous.
Spotty, yeah. Nearly 40% claim to have memories from age 2 or younger, and I would fall in that category. Hundreds said they remember things from before their first birthday. It shouldn't happen very often, but apparently it does.
I think part of my problem is I am not good at differentiating between memories and things that I've been told.
Yeah, that's a good point. Most of us experience what psychologists call infantile amnesia, but by adulthood, the first few years of our lives have become an enormous blank space. And yet people remain utterly convinced they remember something from inside that period. Researchers think many of those memories, to your point, may be constructions. Maybe your parents repeatedly told you about the green stroller that you loved as an infant. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's a photograph of you sitting in it. You know what the old house looked like because you've seen pictures. Eventually, those pieces get assembled into something that feels like a memory. The unnerving part is that your brain doesn't attach a little warning label saying, "Meh, we made this up." You just remember it as if it happened. And then in 2025, researchers at Yale made the whole thing even stranger. They put infants between roughly 4 months and 2 years old in an MRI scanner and showed them images while watching what happens to their hippocampus. That's part of the brain it's essential to forming episodic memories. Later, they tested whether the babies recognized these images. They found that the hippocampus was more active. While the baby first saw something, the baby was more likely to recognize that thing later. So babies appear capable of encoding individual experiences much earlier than scientists had once thought, which is a wonderful problem to try to solve.
Absolutely. Baby experiments.
If an infant's brain can form memories, why can't you remember being one? A baby, that is, not a memory.
Right.
Nobody really knows for sure. The developing brain changes enormously during those first years. Language probably plays a role. So does our slowly developing sense of ourselves.
Well, I think that's a great point, is because so many of us are much better at remembering things after we've said it out loud or after we've written it down. So using different parts of our brains helps us with our memory. And if babies aren't doing those things, because they're dum-dums, it must be harder to remember.
So does our slowly developing sense of ourselves as individuals have something to do with this? Memories also become stronger when parents talk with children about what happened, helping turn experiences into stories that can be retrieved later. But there is another possibility. Maybe some of these memories aren't completely gone. Maybe we've simply lost the ability to reach them. They're real, they're in there somewhere, but we can't find them. There's experimental evidence in animals suggesting that memories formed during infantile amnesia periods can leave traces even after ordinary access to them disappears.
Well, I think that's a great point, and to the point of how different parts of your brain work together, and if those parts of your brain aren't developed all the way yet, you've only got that one bank to pull from. Do you know what I mean? Am I making sense?
You totally making sense.
Okay, thank you.
We do know a newborn can recognize something it encountered before birth.
Right.
That's one of the things that we can honestly say we know for certain, at least in the final days or weeks before birth. And now we know that very young babies are forming memories with some of the same brain machinery that you're using to remember yesterday. Somewhere along the way, though, the door closes and you can't get to those early memories. Behind it are perhaps the strangest years of your total experience. You arrive in the world, somebody yanks you out of a warm place and smacks you on the ass. Welcome to life. You see faces for the first time. You discover light and music, pain, warmth, fear, comfort, and the people that would become pretty much the center of your universe going forward. You learned what your home sounded like. You learned which voice meant safety. You learned that being picked up could make you feel better. And for a while, all of that was your entire world. And today you probably remember absolutely none of it. So think about the earliest memory that you do have. And maybe it's a room or a toy. Maybe it's your mom's face or sitting in a high chair. Maybe it's looking through the bars of a crib. You can see it clearly. You've probably been carrying that little scene around for a long time. But there's a question hiding inside. And it's almost impossible to completely answer. Is that really the first thing you remember? Or is it simply the oldest story your brain can manage to convince you was yours? This comes from research at Yale, PubMed, the Association of Psychological Science, and that was the research paper on unusually early memories.
That really is fascinating.
We experience so many things, and often it's just the same things over and over again. So those are hard to remember. Individual experiences when you've done something 25,000 times. The things that I remember, for some reason, stick because in many cases they were highly unusual. Like before I was 2 years old, there was a kid who had a monkey at his house, and the monkey got out. And I remember my dad coming in and taking me out back to watch the monkey swing through the trees.
Yep, I can see how that would be a little memorable.
Yeah, it sticks in your mind. Anyway, there you have it. Weird stuff for you.
I think we all know that any of my earliest memories wouldn't be like neat for me to remember. So we just don't do that.
Just don't open that closet door.
No, shove it down. Shove it way down.
Kat's at a therapist, and the therapist says, yeah, let's unpack some of that. And Kat goes, I think I need a new therapist.
She wanted me to do that rapid eye movement regression.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was like, yeah, that sounds neat. And then I never went back.
You know, my grandfather was an old Mainer, and he used to always say, when the crickets sing louder at dusk, autumn ain't far behind. Me, I just look at a calendar, and I can't believe that August is here already. It's a perfect time to hit reset for the autumn rush. Quince proves you don't need a crowded closet to look incredible. You just need the right pieces. Are you familiar with Quince? They specialize in effortless, high-quality essentials like ultra-soft organic cotton and premium Mongolian cashmere sweaters. They're beautifully tailored, they're built to last, and it is a perfect transition from morning meeting to dinner. Kat looks so cute in her cashmere sweater. Everything at Quince is priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. They work directly with ethical factories and cut out the middleman, so you're paying for quality, not brand markup. And I'm not exaggerating when I say my favorite shirts are Quince, but I also love their shorts. And the thing that I was really surprised about when we first started getting Quince clothing is the high quality, and the price is just so unbelievably affordable. And they also bring the same everyday elevation to everything they offer. Kat's also a big fan of the hotel quality linen pillowcases. Upgrade your everyday. Download the Quince app for an app exclusive offer or go to quince.com/oddities. Get free shipping on your orders and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada and the UK too. That's QUINCE.com/oddities.
Get your tickets now for the Dog Stars.
It's no surprise how fast civilization can disappear. Out there, it's kill or be killed.
Jacob Elordi,
There are people out there. They need our help.
Josh Brolin,
Shoot first and inquire afterwards.
Margaret Qualley,
Okay, tough guy.
and Guy Pearce.
Arm up!
The Dog Stars, directed by Ridley Scott. In theaters August 28th. Get tickets now. Rated R. Under 17. Not admitted without parents.
And now, that thing in the middle.
Imagine, if you will, a time so ancient that the planet looked like a wet sock left in a sauna. No mammals, no flowers, no Netflix, just slime, soup, and pure uncut chaos. This was Earth 400 million years ago, and out of that primordial punch bowl emerged sharks. Not the sleek celebrity shark diva types that we know today. No, these were clunky, armor-plated murder noodles with poor eyesight. But they were survivors. Oceanic murder Roombas cruising prehistoric tides, while the land was still deciding whether it was gonna sprout a fern or not. Now, fast forward 50 million years. Boom. Trees. Late in the evolutionary party, like a dude who shows up to rave after the glow sticks are gone and everybody's already passed out in the ball pit. Meanwhile, sharks are already the elder gods of the deep. And today, they're still here, still biting things. Because when you're 400 million years old, you don't chase fads. You are the fad. So yes, next time you see a majestic redwood or an Instagrammable maple, just remember, this tree is a toddler, a zygote, a sapling in the timeline of existence. But the shark is your ancient aquatic daddy. Suck it, Oaks.
Get your tickets now for the Dog Stars.
It's no surprise how fast civilization can disappear. Out there, it's kill or be killed.
Jacob Elordi,
There are people out there. They need our help.
Josh Brolin,
Shoot first and inquire afterwards.
Margaret Qualley,
Okay, tough guy.
and Guy Pearce.
Arm up!
The Dog Stars, directed by Ridley Scott. In theaters August 28th. Get tickets now. Rated R. Under 17. Not admitted without parents.
The award-winning American Airlines Advantage program rewards more than travel. It takes your whole life to new heights. Earn miles when you fly, as well as with thousands of your favorite brands. And then redeem those miles for flights, upgrades, and experiences worldwide. Advantage members also enjoy earlier boarding and free high-speed Wi-Fi in flight. Join for free and start earning towards your next adventure at aa.com/Spotify.
Ah, summertime. You're at the pool, lake, or ocean. You have your sunscreen, new book, and favorite beverage. Then you awaken to find ants have eaten half your left foot, and you're headed to the emergency room. Ah, summertime. This is the Box of Oddities.
If you look at Saskatchewan on a map, you'll find the Qu'Appelle River running through the southern part of the province, eventually joining another river that I don't know how to pronounce. The name Qu'Appelle is French and essentially means who calls, but that's got kind of a story behind it. The Cree name associated with the river is Qu'Appelle, often translated as the river that calls or the river that calls out. The name refers to a phenomenon associated with the Qu'Appelle Valley. Voices or sounds seeming to travel across the water and through the valley, sometimes sounding remarkably like someone calling from a distance.
Oh, wow. Wow, I can imagine that has created all kinds of legends.
One of the early written accounts comes from Daniel Harmon, a Métis fur trader and explorer who traveled through the region around the beginning of the 19th century. Harmon recorded that Indigenous people in the area had a tradition of responding when they heard a voice or a call coming from across the valley. That response was essentially, "Who calls?" in Cree, Qu'Appelle, and eventually that became associated with the French Qu'Appelle, who calls. There's actually a physical phenomenon that can happen in the Qu'Appelle Valley.
That's more K.
Qu'Appelle? Qu'Appelle. There actually is a physical phenomenon that can happen in the Qu'Appelle Valley. The shape of the valley, the water and the cliffs, the surrounding landscape can produce echoes and carry sounds over surprisingly long distances. A sound made somewhere else can seem to come from another direction entirely. Under the right conditions, a distant voice can sound eerily close, or even sound to be directly calling to you. So there's a real landscape phenomenon happening here. And over time, that became wrapped in stories. The best known version of the Qu'Appelle legend is a tragic love story. A young man away from his village on a hunting trip, eager to return home because his fiancée is waiting for him. As he travels home, he hears a voice calling his name. He answers, Qu'Appelle. In other words, who calls? But there is no response, only the echo. When he finally reaches home, he discovers that his beloved has died suddenly. And according to the story, as she lay dying, she'd called out his name. He had heard her voice across the valley, but was too far to reach her. That tragic explanation became the romantic legend of Qu'Appelle. But there's an important distinction here. This is not the original legend. The most popular story that people recognize today was popularized by a poem by Pauline Johnson, a Mohawk writer and performer, in her poem, The Legend of the Qu'Appelle Valley. Johnson took the older tradition surrounding the mysterious calls of the valley and transformed it. And that stuck because it was neat and pretty and it involved lost love and all that business.
Very poetic.
It became so closely associated with that place that today if you ask someone what Qu'Appelle means, they're likely to tell you the same version of that story, a man hearing his dying fiancé calling his name. But people who'd lived there have been talking about these sounds long before Pauline Johnson poemed it up. This story was brought to our attention by Ashley, who sent us a message that was featured in the inbox last week. And I thought, as I was reading about it and learning more about Saskatchewan, how this is part of a bigger story about how Saskatchewan's legends were preserved and transformed. The Qu'Appelle story sits at an intersection of Indigenous oral traditions and Métis history, plus French influence and European explorers and later Canadian literature. And Saskatchewan has a lot more legends where that came from.
Hearing those voices, it reminds me of a phenomena during the Civil War that they at the time called ghost battles, where they would hear in certain weather conditions the sounds of exploding munitions hundreds and hundreds of miles away. Technically, it's referred to as an acoustic shadow, I think. Fascinating stuff.
And I imagine terrifying when you're in the middle of a war. One important figure in Cree storytelling is the Wîsahkêcâhk, and several variations of it depending on the Cree community and the way that the name is transliterated, which is a new word for me.
I've never heard it.
We love learning.
Learning's the best.
Wîsahkêcâhk is often described as a trickster or a cultural hero, but neither word completely captures the character. He appears in stories that have been passed down through generations and can explain things about the natural world, about human behavior or animals, or the way the world came to be as it is. And the Wîsahkêcâhk isn't necessarily a hero in the traditional storybook sense. He can be silly or mischievous or foolish. He can get himself into situations that could have been avoided if he'd made better decisions. It feels a lot like a Saturday morning teaching cartoon.
Well, when you said trickster, immediately I thought of an entity that might have some sort of malice, but it sounds like this is just a big old goofball.
It's like a Gallant and Goofus kind of situation.
Ooh, nice highlights reference.
Thank you. These aren't just stories about supernatural adventures. They're part of a much larger oral storytelling tradition, using stories to pass on knowledge and values, history, and an understanding of the natural world from one generation to the next. Of course, keep in mind that much of the history of Native tribes across the Americas was passed down via oral tradition. But there are also some really interesting traditional protocols surrounding the telling of some Cree stories. For example, some of the Wîsahkêcâhk stories were traditionally told during winter months only, rather than throughout the year. So this is old oral folklore, and not something that someone wrote down in a book or a storybook that you would pick up and share whenever. They were really about teaching about how the world works. The important thing is that these stories weren't necessarily trying to answer a question in a scientific sense. They were about understanding, but also about teaching morals, teaching the way that we do things and why. We have a deep need to do that as people.
We need answers.
We need answers. And Saskatchewan has a great example of this, the St. Louis Light. St. Louis is a small community in central Saskatchewan, along the South Saskatchewan River. I feel like I've said Saskatchewan a lot.
It's a fun word to say.
It is.
Let's say it together. Saskatchewan.
The area was settled in the 19th century, and a railway eventually ran through the community. And for decades, people have reported seeing a strange light in the area. You did a story very similar to this.
Oh, yeah, the ghost lantern lights.
Yes.
Yeah.
The descriptions vary, but the story is pretty consistent on its most basic level. At night, somewhere along the old railway line, a bright light appears in the distance. It's often described as looking like a train headlight. It can appear to move toward the observer, move away, change in brightness, and sometimes change in color. But here's the interesting part. The railway tracks are gone. Probably not a train.
Wow. Okay. Is it swamp gas?
Could be swamp gas. But some believe that much like the way that the Qu'Appelle River affects sound differently, that this part of Saskatchewan affects light differently, and that it might actually be traffic lights that are somehow reflected in a very unique way during very specific weather conditions.
So atmospheric conditions lend to it. Okay.
Or it could be, ghosties. Who knows? Who knows? Saskatchewan has a rich history of storytelling and lore and legend, and it doesn't end with the oral traditions of the people of Saskatchewan. It continues today. And thanks to Ashley for asking us to dig into it. There are also a lot of cryptids, but I didn't want to open that whole can of worms.
Save it for later. TheBoxOfOddities.com is where you can go and find out all Box of Oddities related stuff. You can help support the podcast on Patreon, and that link is there. The link for our free newsletter is there, and a bunch of other fun stuff.
We appreciate you so much. Thank you for hanging out with us.
We'll see you next time.
Until then, keep flying that freak flag.
Fly it proudly, you beautiful freak.
And so, let it be known that the Box of Oddities belongs to you, and its fate is in your hands. We wish to offer our deeply felt gratitude and appreciation for your patronage. TheBoxOfOddities.com. Copyright 2026, all rights reserved.
I am the one who loved her as my life, had watched her grow to sweet young womanhood, won the dear privilege to call her wife, and found the world, because of her, was good. I am the one who heard the spirit voice, of which the pale-faced settlers love to tell, from whose strange story they've made their choice of naming this fair valley the Qu'Appelle. She had said fondly in my eager ear, when Indian summer smiles with dusky lip, "Come to the lakes, I will be the first to hear the welcome music of thy paddle dip. I will be the first to lay in thine my hand, to whisper words of greeting on the shore. And when thou wouldst return to thine own land, I'll go with thee, thy wife forevermore." Nor yet a leaf had fallen, not a tone of frost upon the plain ere I set forth, impatient to possess her as my own, this queen of all the women of the north. I rested not at even or at dawn, but journeyed all the dark and the daylight through, until I'd reached the lakes, and hurrying on, I launched upon their bosom my canoe. Of sleep or hunger, then took no heed, but hastened o'er their leagues of waterways. But my hot heart outstripped my paddle's speed, and waited not for distance or for days, but flew before me swifter than the blade of magic paddle ever cleaved the lake, eager to lay its love before the maid, and watch the love light in her eyes awake. So the long days went slowly drifting past. It seems that half my life must intervene before the morrow, when I said at last, one more day's journey, and I win my queen. I rested then, and drifting dreamed the more of all the happiness I was to claim, when suddenly from out the shadowed shore I heard voice speak tenderly my name. "Who calls?" I answered. No reply, and long I stilled my paddle blade and listened. Then above the night wind's melodic song, I heard distantly that strange voice again, a woman's voice that through the twilight came, like to a soul unborn, a song unsung. I leaned and listened. Yes, she spoke my name. And then I answered, in a quaint French tongue, Qu'Appelle, Qu'Appelle. No answer, and the night seemed stiller than the sound, till round me fell the far-off echoes from far-off height. Qu'Appelle, my voice came back, Qu'Appelle, Qu'Appelle. This and no more, I called aloud until I shuddered as the gloam of night increased, and like a pallid specter, wan and chill, the moon arose in silence from the east. I dare not linger on the moment when, my boat I beached beside her teepee door. I heard the wail of women and of men. I saw the death fires lighted on the shore. No language tells the torture or the pain, the bitterness that flooded all my life, when I was led to look on her again, that queen of women pledged to be my wife, to look upon the beauty of her face, the still closed eyes, the lips that knew no breath, to look, to learn, to realize my place had been usurped by my one rival, death. A storm of wrecking sorrow beat and broke about my heart, and life shut out its light, till through my anguish someone gently spoke and said, "Twice did she call for thee last night." I started up, and bending o'er my dead, asked, when did her sweet lips in silence close? She called thy name, then passed away, they said, just on the hour whereat the moon arose. Among the lonely lakes I go no more, for she who made their beauty is not there. The pale-face rears his teepee on the shore, and says the vale is fairest of the fair. Full many years have vanished since, but still the voyagers beside the campfire tell how when the moonrise tips the distant hill, they hear strange voices through the silent swell. The pale-face loves the haunted lakes, they say, and journeys far to watch their beauty spread before his vision. But to me, the day, the night, the hour, the seasons are all dead. I listen heartsick while the hunters tell why white men named the valley the Qu'Appelle.
Bummer.
Hello.
Look what TJ Maxx dragged in.
The Devil Wears Prada 2 is now streaming on Disney Plus and Hulu.
We are digital, we are downloadable, we are streamable.
The fashion event of the year is certified fresh.
Pull yourself together, we have work to do.
Critics say it's smart and witty and the perfect sequel.
That's all.
Get runway ready for The Devil Wears Prada 2 on Disney Plus and Hulu. Rated PG-13.
At ZocDoc, we know being a healthy adult is like living in a video game. Every day has side quests, taxes, laundry, birthdays. And just when you're leveling up, you have to book a doctor. The insurance portal crashes. They put you on hold. Your doctor doesn't take your plan. Game over. We see you. So we made booking a doctor easy. Download ZocDoc. Search by specialty, insurance, and availability. Book instantly. No cheat codes required. Find a doctor you love with ZocDoc.